It's 1812, and General Wellesley, soon to be the Duke of Wellington of course, has his eyes set on kicking the French out of Spain. But there is a slight problem. Two enormous, well-fortified strongholds stand in his way. First up is Ciudad Rodrigo, which the British army successfully storms in a spectacular display of Napoleonic-era demolition. The good news? Victory. The bad news? Well, Colonel Lawford, one of Sharpe's few upper-class allies, is severely wounded, meaning Sharpe just lost his best connection to the officer class. And if you've been following Sharpe's adventures, you know that's a big problem. Enter Colonel Wyndham, the South Essex's new commander. Now, Wyndham isn't the worst officer in the British Army, he's certainly better than Simmerson, but he brings with him his own set of officers, meaning that Sharpe is unceremoniously demoted to lieutenant. To make matters worse, he's reassigned to baggage duty, which, for a man who thrives on action, is a fate worse than death. And just when it seems like things couldn't get any worse...
Oh my word, what a surprise. Sharpe.
Sergeant Obadiah Hakeswell slithers onto the scene like a cockroach that refuses to die. Hakeswell, a walking nightmare in human form, is an old enemy of Sharpe from his days in India, and if there's one thing he enjoys more than tormenting Sharpe, it's tormenting everyone else too. The South Essex got a whole lot more miserable, shall we say. Meanwhile, Sharpe's lover Teresa drops a slight bombshell. He has a baby daughter living with her family inside Badajoz. Sharpe takes the news in his stride. However, Hakeswell, being the absolute monster that he is, takes a wee bit of interest in Teresa, a slight mistake on his part. She bids farewell to Sharpe to slip back inside Badajoz to spy on the French and see baby Sharpe. Back in camp, Hakeswell, being unable to take a beating like a man, decides to make Sharpe's life even more miserable. He steals from the officers and plants a stolen picture frame belonging to Wyndham in the kit of none other than Sergeant Harper. Naturally, Harper is sentenced to be flogged, because in the British Army, evidence is optional, and beating enlisted men is practically a sport. Sharpe is powerless to stop it, and Harper, because he's tough as a brick wall, takes the lashes like a champ. During a night skirmish, a French turncoat makes a break for it, carrying a dispatch and a letter from Teresa. The good news, he makes it to the British camp. The bad news, he gets shot before he can say anything useful. Sharpe recovers the letter, which contains a map of Teresa's location inside Badajoz. Unfortunately, however, Hakeswell, the ever-screaming rat that he is, uses the chaos of the battlefield to try and shoot Sharpe, but instead, he kills young Master Ensign Matthews, who was taken from us far too young. Eventually, after days of brutal fighting, the walls of Badajoz are breached. The first assault falters, but Sharpe, being he's the main character and can't die, rallies the men and leads them inside. And they flood into the city like gravy on a roast dinner. Hakeswell, however, has stolen Teresa's letter and gets to her first. Harry Price, one of Sharpe's officers, intervenes. Unfortunately for our swaying alcoholic friend, Hakeswell shoots him. Sharpe, however, arrives just in time to stop Hakeswell. A fight ensues, and Hakeswell gets wounded, but in true cartoon-like villain fashion, he still manages to get away. Not content with simply being the worst human being alive, he assaults and murders the widow of fallen soldier Private Clayton, before gathering his stash of stolen goods and deserting. With the dust settled over this Pyrrhic victory, most of the regiment's officers are either dead or incapacitated. Wyndham gives Sharpe his command back. Harper, still bruised from his flogging, gets the last laugh when he finds Wyndham's missing picture hidden inside Hakeswell's shako. He returns it to the colonel, clearing his name and proving what everyone already suspected. Hakeswell is a bit of a... In the end, Sharpe gets his light company back, however Hakeswell escaped, and Badajoz has been reduced to ruin. It's a bittersweet victory, but if we know one thing about Richard Sharpe, it's that he's not done yet. Hakeswell may have slipped away this time, but his days are numbered. With the plot out of the way, let's get into the roots of the episode and dig deep to uncover its core elements. This episode is one of the most gripping and emotionally powerful in the entire Sharpe series. Not only does it feature one of the bloodiest battles of the Peninsular War, but it also delivers some of the most personal stakes for Sharpe as a character. Losing his captaincy, fearing for his wife, the flogging of his best friend. Add all to this Sharpe dealing with Hakeswell's never-ending campaign of sadism, certainly make this one of the darkest periods of Sharpe's life. In this episode, there are 3 characters who create a story triangle of sorts. By this point in the series, Sean Bean has fully embodied the role of Richard Sharpe. Sharpe's frustration and anger are obvious throughout the episode. Losing his captaincy is more than just an emotion, it's a personal betrayal. He has spent his entire career fighting against the upper-class officers who look down on him, and now, despite all that he's achieved, he's once again reminded that birth, not merit, determines success in the British Army. Bean masterfully conveys this through a mixture of brooding intensity and barely contained rage. His determination to reclaim his status and protect his loved ones make for one of his most compelling performances in the series. And if Sharpe's Eagle had Henry Simmerson as its main antagonist, Sharpe's Company introduces an entirely different kind of evil, Sergeant Obadiah Hakeswell. Pete Postlethwaite's portrayal of Hakeswell is nothing short of chilling. Unlike Simmerson, who is an incompetent aristocrat, Hakeswell is a sadistic, cunning, and truly terrifying opponent. He's always scheming and always thinking. He is a man who believes he's invincible. That's thanks to a delusion that he believes he cannot be killed. Hakeswell delights in tormenting those he sees as weaker than him. And his personal vendetta against Sharpe adds a psychological element to the conflict. Unlike the French, who Sharpe fights on the battlefield, Hakeswell undermines him from within his own ranks. His harassment of Sharpe's men and his disturbing obsession with Teresa make him one of the most hated villains in the series. And Teresa, Sharpe's Spanish guerrilla lover, is more than just a romantic subplot. She's an integral part of Sharpe's motivations. As the mother of his child, she represents something rare for Sharpe, stability and a future beyond war. In this episode, her actions directly impact the Siege of Badajoz with her critical information. Teresa isn't just waiting for Sharpe to act. She takes the initiative and enters Badajoz herself to gather intelligence on the French and, of course, to visit her daughter. Her role as a guerrilla fighter and spy is a crucial subplot in this episode, highlighting her courage, resourcefulness, and independence. Now, if we were to look at the filmmaking aspects of this episode, Sharpe's Company features one of the most intense and visceral battle sequences in the series. The siege itself is depicted well, with brutal realism. British troops face cannon fire, musket volleys, and deadly traps as they attempt to breach the city's walls. The decision to stage much of the battle at night adds to the confusion and terror. Shadows, explosions, and desperate hand-to-hand combat create a sense of claustrophobic chaos. The episode also accurately depicts the horrific losses suffered by the British during the siege, as well as the brutality that followed once the city was taken. Sharpe's Company also delivers into thematic meaning of certain topics, such as the injustice of the British class system. Sharpe's demotion is a powerful reminder that, in the British Army, skill and bravery mean very little to social standing. His struggle to regain his captaincy is more than just a personal challenge, it's a fight against the institution that refuses to recognise his worth. Wellington is one of the only handful of high-ranking officers who value Sharpe, which is why he refuses to have Sharpe lead the forlorn hope to certain death. Even with that being the case, there is still the fact that Wellington can do very little to overrule the internal politics of the time. We also see psychological warfare and internal betrayal. While the French are the external enemy, Hakeswell represents the danger from within. His manipulative tactics, combined with his sheer unpredictability, make him just as dangerous as any opposing army. If we were ranking TV show villains, Sergeant Obadiah Hakeswell would certainly be in the top 10. Sharpe's relationship with Teresa adds emotional stakes to the story. Unlike many war films and shows that treat love interests as secondary, Sharpe's Company integrates Teresa into the plot in a meaningful way. I would also like to add that the supporting cast also delivers in each scene they are in. Dara O'Malley always portrays Harper with such fierce loyalty and humour alongside the chosen men. Hugh Fraser's first outing on Wellington impresses, along with Michael Byrne as Major Nairn. William Mannering as Ensign Matthews has a youthful naivety about him, while Harry Price adds levity in what is one of the more darker episodes. Sharpe's Company is a turning point in the series, raising the stakes for both the character and the show itself. It remains relatively faithful to the books, albeit compressing a lot down for the constraints of TV. With one of the best villains, one of the most intense battles, and some of the strongest performances, this episode is a must-watch for any Sharpe fan. If you enjoyed this delve into Sharpe's Company, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What's your favourite moment from the episode, and where would you rank Sergeant Hakeswell in the list of Sharpe's villains? Next time, we'll be looking into the next episode in the Sharpe saga, Sharpe's Enemy. Until then, I'll see you over the hill and far away.